Hello and welcome. My name is Jesse Howard and I am a FileMaker and web developer at Codence. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the new set error logging script step in the latest FileMaker release, FileMaker 18. So let's get started. The set error logging script step is a fantastic new tool for developers because it makes the ability to trap and better record user-based script errors so much more easily. The way that it works is it creates an external text file simply named script errors.log in each user's respective documents folder. Regardless of whether it's Windows or Mac, it figures out the file path and it does the rest, which is pretty neat. If the file doesn't exist, it creates it. If it does exist, then it just appends any past errors into the log file, regardless of FileMaker file. So if we take a preview, you'll see it'll show the different dates, the file, the script in question, where the set error logging script step was called, etc. So with that in mind, let's try a common use case. Here I am, I've got a sample database with some fictitious contacts, and I want to export these contacts to a spreadsheet that I could later email to somebody, right? So if I click on this handy export contacts button, I get an error. This is a kind of generic FileMaker error, basically saying that my very imaginative file name, somecontacts.xlsx, could not be created. And as a user, maybe I don't really know what that means. I know for a fact that this script should export that file to my documents folder. If I go there, here's my documents folder, here's the S's. I don't see somecontacts.xls. However, thankfully, I had the foresight to add the new set error logging script step to this export contacts script. So if I go to my documents folder and look at that script error log, you'll see, hey, look at that. Here's today's date. Here's the file. Here's the step in the script in which it failed, the error number for that error. And then the new set error logging script step allows you to specify a custom value, whether it be text or numbers, that you can pass in to kind of make this log file hopefully a little easier to sift through and read. And that's what my future self did down here. So let's look at the actual script itself. So we go into script workspace, pull up the script in question, export found contacts. So this is really a pretty basic script. It's just doing two steps, a set variable to a file path. And as we probably already guessed, the file path itself is the problem. However, this file path will never throw an actual error. What throws the error is the export records when we're given an inaccurate path, right? So we've got our set error logging script step here, and it's somewhat reminiscent to the set error capture, where it's either on or off. And also, like set error capture, this set error logging step is best used kind of in tandem, where you kind of have a kind of opening and closing bracket, if you will, for lack of a better term, where we're basically very specifically declaring what area of our script do we want logged. And there's some good reasons on why you might want to do that, and I'll dive into that in a little bit. And then the only parameter that this set error logging script step allows is what FileMaker calls this custom debug info, which if I click on the little step gear, we have this option here where it says hint, your file path is invalid. This is where we can put in that custom memo or note to ourselves. So now we do that. One other thing to mention while we're here is you may have noticed that this script is set to run with full access privileges. That is required for the set error logging step. Why? Well, it just is. But if you don't do that, and let's say I'm a user and I try to run a script and the script in question has this set error logging step in it, and I as a user experience an error, I will still get an error. This set error logging does not suppress the error to the user, but because I don't have full access, nothing will be logged. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, as most of you know, this file path is what the problem is. So if we go in here and fix it to something like that, and then we go back out and test it again. Hey, it's thinking about it. I think that worked. Cool. So now it pulls up my email and attaches the file. All is right in the universe. We can move along with our lives. And more importantly, if I go to my documents folder, that exported spreadsheet is where I expected it to be. So hallelujah. Okay, so that's that. Pretty straightforward. That's the set error logging script step in a nutshell. However, I kind of mentioned that there's a lot of other script steps that work with external files like this one. So I'm going to show you a fun use case for that. Here I've got another button simply called check errors, and click on that. It pulls up a card window that is essentially displaying all the values from our error log that we were just looking at. In fact, here's that error we just made a few minutes ago. And how this works is it's basically saying, hey, go into the user's documents, find this file that we know should exist and where it should be, open it in the background so that FileMaker can read it, grab that data, spit that data into FileMaker, and then close that external file so that someone else can use it, right? So that's pretty much what it's doing. So if I poke it with a stick, as you will, and use another silly script called make an error, hey, surprise, surprise, we have another error. But now, if I click OK and you watch this kind of bottom left corner of my card window, you'll see, hey, that new error just got pulled right in. Here's the script in question, make an error. The step that caused the error is a set field step. And then here's a new custom label for the set error logging script step. So that's pretty much kind of what we've got going on here. And if I pull up that script, again, it still has full access privileges, just like before, for the same reason. You'll notice I used a new script step called close data file that is meant to say, hey, FileMaker, if you see any external data files like this script errors that happens to be open, close it first and then proceed, which by the way is not a bad rule of thumb when working with these data script steps. But then we have our set error logging on, my custom label. Here's the script step that we're checking against, which is basically a set field for a field that is an unrelated table. So due to context, this is going to cause an error no matter what. And then we turn set error logging off. And then for good measure, what the heck, we close the data files again, just in case. By the way, with close data file, you see this kind of quotes around a star that acts as like a wildcard, meaning if there's any ID, just close it. There are other script steps that now will allow you to figure out what an individual file ID is for external text files, that is. And again, I'm not getting into that, but just in case you're wondering, that's what all that's about. But yeah, so there's this piece. And again, notice the very intentional placement of our set error logging on and off. The reason I mention that is if we do set error logging on, FileMaker is essentially going into your computer, finding this file. If it's not there, it creates it, and then it opens it. And I don't mean it opens it in a way that you see or can view in a text editor. It kind of opens it hidden on a system level, and it opens it in such a way where, for lack of a better word, it is record locked. It is basically inaccessible to anyone else or any other script step that tries to access this file. And the reason why that's important is because if I tried to just start my script with set error logging and end my script with set error logging, right, which might be tempting, this is opening that file. It's essentially locking this file. And so now any other things that try to use this file until we get down to here is going to result in an error. So this will cause an error. This will cause an error. This recursive script is basically what refreshed that card window that you saw a moment ago. That's going to cause a whole bunch of errors. If we go in here, it's basically just saying, hey, close the data file. If the file exists, then, open the file, read the data from the file, close the file, and then set the file values into FileMaker's global field or whatever. So that's kind of what all that's doing. And I mean, yeah, it's a text file. You can delete the text file. You can, maybe it's not going to be the end of the world if you mess it up because it's locked and you don't have permissions to change it. But just something to be mindful of as you start messing around with these things, especially if it is going to be something that you want to rely on, like a reliable log of user errors and things like that. So just something to be mindful of. Thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully you found it useful. To recap, we gave an introduction to the new set error logging script step, what it is, how you can use it, and some ideas in which it can be expanded upon, especially when combined with some of the other new external data file related script steps that were also introduced in FileMaker 18. To stay in touch and receive notifications regarding future content releases, please subscribe to our channel and blog. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Jesse Howard, Codence.